Good morning. Welcome to the Affordable Housing Advisory Board hybrid meeting. We have, actually, I think we have an in-present quorum, which is absolutely awesome, and we also have, I think, the remainder of the board members online. I'm going to call the meeting to order and ask for a roll call, please.
Overman,
Here.
Myers,
Here.
Rosenwasser,
Here.
Burton,
Here.
Lott,
Here.
Abel,
Here.
Jackson Sims, Karen Jackson.
Present.
Okay. Sarah Combs. David Hollis.
Present, sorry.
O'Donnelly. Nieves. Strom.
Present.
And for county staff, Nancy Takamori. And Cheryl Howell.
Cheryl Howell is here. I believe Nancy should be attending face-to-face.
She is here.
Okay, great, thank you.
And Mr. Powell is on his way.
Excellent. Ms. Takamori, I don't believe your mic is on, so just in case.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
There you are. Okay, great, thank you.
Oh, Commissioner, 1 second. I forgot to call up Councilman Goods. Are you here, Councilman Goods?
I'm sorry, you're getting such a bad echo. I can't hear you. It's, oh, my fault. There it is. Okay. I think we're good now. Excellent. Thank you very much for that. And I appreciate those who were able to be here. We have an in-person quorum.
It's one of the mics.
No, it's one of the mics. Yeah, there may be one that's on.
What is the button push to turn it on?
Actually, for those who don't push a button, Nancy has to push a button.
She'll push her.
Yeah, she turns it off, but I don't think it's hers. Turn the speaker off and the audio off. Is that better?
David Hollis is present.
Thank you, David. I see you logged in. We still have an echo though. But I can live with that if I absolutely have to. Is that one off? Yeah. Actually, I want to welcome everyone, and I wanted to find out if we have any public comments today.
Commissioner, we did not have any public comments scheduled for today.
Okay. It might be Natasha's. Okay. The first item on the agenda beyond public comments are the approval of the minutes for May 10th, 2021.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion to approval by Commissioner Myers, a second by Mark Rosenwasser. Could we have a roll call vote?
Overman.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Rosenwasser.
Yes.
Burton.
Yes.
Lott.
Yes.
Abel.
Yes.
Jackson Sims.
Yes.
Combs.
Yes.
Hollis.
Yes.
Goods. Okay, I don't hear him on the line, but the motion is carried.
Great.
9-0.
Excellent, thank you very much. With that, I have just a couple of updates, but more importantly, we have an excellent presentation today that I'd love for everyone to hear. We have had several good things happen in the area of affordable housing. We recently had a Home for Heroes dedicated for one of our veterans out in Riverview, and that was a lot of fun to attend. You can see how veterans that have been impacted by their time in service have had an opportunity to have a home built by a fully independent group of philanthropists that have made that happen. It's great to see that happen. With that, I'd like to introduce Nicole Mccleary. She is the senior project leader at HART, that is looking at our transit-oriented development program for the area from downtown up through to the university area. But what it does is it gives us good research on future opportunities for us to declare transit-oriented development areas that helps HART focus on where transit can be fairly provided and gives us the proper incentives for affordable housing. And with that, I'd like to recognize Nicole Mccleary, if she's available, please.
Good morning, and thank you for having us. Today we are really excited to share with you our transit-oriented development study pilot project, and just let you know where we are currently with the project, what we've been doing, and get some feedback from you all. So I'll start with an overview. Just to let everyone know that this project is in partnership with the City of Tampa and Hillsborough County. We're studying the land use and development along the planned corridors for the BRT and the streetcar extension. So it'll improve transit service connecting downtown Tampa to USF. Next slide, please. So TOD, some of you may be familiar, some may not, but it stands for Transit-Oriented Development. And TOD is actually designed to capitalize on access to transit, to really make using transit easy and accessible to those people living close to it, and to make it a choice for others that may be commuting in. Next slide, please. So currently, our project is actually 3 phases, and it's over 18 months. We are currently in the 2nd phase. We have completed a context assessment, which is really great. We evaluated current conditions along the study area, and we really identified some opportunities for land use and development changes. We are now looking at policies and strategies, kind of really determining, reviewing the current policy, seeing what those holes are, those gaps, and how we can address those to have supportive TOD features within the study corridor. The next step will be station area planning for the the streetcar extension on Palm Avenue. Next slide, please. We actually developed 5 goals for this study, and they include protecting and improving the community character, really encouraging a diverse mix of use throughout the study corridor, creating safe, walkable, complete streets that are bikeable, ensuring context sensitivity for new development that might be created, really including public spaces, so there's areas to walk, ride your bike, play, and then improving walking, biking, and transit both locally and regionally. Next slide, please. So one of the things I'd like to share with you guys today, we have an awesome consultant team, and here today we have Steve Schucraft from HDR, and then we have some representatives from SB Friedman that did our market assessment, and they will get into the meat of our study to date.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome, Steve.
So the project is designed to look at the land use implications and connection between land use and transit service, including the streetcar extension that's running, planned to run from its current stop at Fort Brook Garage north through downtown to Palm Avenue. And then the BRT line, which HART is studying, which would look at a system that connects USF on Bruce B. Downs, down Fowler Avenue, south, Nebraska a bit, crossing over at Lineball to Florida, south from Florida to downtown, and then connecting with the streetcar system and serving the core downtown Tampa. So both projects are designed to provide really high quality service, high frequency service, and make transit a real easy opportunity for folks to use to get through to destinations across this project, and then to connect to regional service to get elsewhere across the whole Tampa Bay region. The study area itself, as I mentioned, is the communities along the corridor. So we drew a line of about a half a mile distance, which is about a 10-minute walk from the proposed corridor and the stop locations. And you can see this shows you the location of the streetcar on the right-hand side, serving downtown up into the south end of Tampa Heights. And then the BRT line runs through Tampa Heights and Seminole Heights, crosses the river right around Water Tower Park, continues north on Florida, turns east on Lineball, north on Nebraska, east on Fowler, and then north on Bruce B. Downs. So this connects all of the communities along that area and serves the neighborhoods within walking distance of that line. So we're looking at both what happens right on the line at stations, but also what happens within walking distance. We've done, as Nicole mentioned, we've completed a couple major reports, which are first products of the study, a context assessment, and then we developed a briefing book, which is more high-level introduction to the study and to what we learned in our analysis. So if you want to pick either of these documents, start with the briefing book. That'll give you the high-level review of what we learned, and then you can dive into more detail in the context assessment. And a lot of what you'll hear next is included in the context assessment, and that's the work that SB Friedman is doing as part of our team. And just quickly, the strategies that we're working on focus on walking, biking, and access to transit, promoting affordable housing and diversity of housing, and encouraging transit-oriented development and protecting neighborhood character. We're looking at applying land use, new land use categories along the corridor that promote transit-oriented development, different scales based on the location. So higher intensity downtown and up by USF, more modest infill development along the corridors between USF and downtown. And with that, I want to spend most of our time reviewing our affordable housing research and what we're working on for recommendations, and I'll turn it over to SB Friedman for that.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Caitlin Johnson, and I'm a project manager with SB Friedman. Our role on this project is conducting the market research and developing strategies related to affordable housing. I'm also joined by my colleagues, Jeff Dickinson and Elizabeth Ginsburg. To begin, we just wanted to talk about housing affordability in regards to the concept of cost burden. A residential unit is considered affordable if no more than 30% of a household's income goes towards housing costs, while spending more than 30% of income on housing costs is considered cost burdened. Overall, there's approximately 186,000 households that are cost burdened in Hillsborough County. And to dive a little bit deeper into this data, we assessed cost burden as a function of housing balance by income level for owner-occupied and renter-occupied households. So on this slide, you see that the housing balance for owner-occupied households. And this shows the extent to which there is a mismatch between occupied housing units and the actual number of households in each income bracket. Here we do see that the supply of owner-occupied housing units exceeds actual households at most income levels, with the exception of households earning greater than $75,000. On this next slide, we've layered in additional data on cost burden, which is the dark red bar on the charts. What we see is that despite generally having the supply of units for each income bracket, the majority of owner-occupied households at or below 80% AMI, or those earning less than 50% or $50,000 per year, are cost burdened due to that mismatch between supply and higher income households living below their means. In particular, the most cost-burdened households are those earning less than $20,000 and between $20,000 and $35,000. On this next slide, we are looking at housing balance for renter-occupied housing. Not sure if this slide, there we go, where we see a greater imbalance, especially for renter households with incomes less than $20,000 a year, where the supply of affordable units is actually less than the number of households in that income bracket. On the next slide, we again layer in this cost burden data for renter occupied housing, and we find that over 100,000 renter occupied households in the county earning less than $50,000 per year are cost burdened. This includes nearly 90% of households earning less than $20,000 a year and 85% of households earning between $20,000 and $34,000. This is likely due in part both to the limited supply of housing units that are affordable to folks in lower income households, as well as other higher income households living below their means. And this points to the need for additional affordable housing units for very low income households earning less than 30% of AMI. So to understand the housing affordability challenges, specifically along the BRT corridor that we're talking about, we looked at the existing supply of rental housing by sub-area to help inform our understanding of who could be impacted by the transit improvement. So over the next few slides, we're gonna walk through the supply of affordable housing, including legally restricted affordable housing. You'll see that denoted as LRA on the slides. And then naturally occurring affordable housing, which we'll refer to as NOAA, which are those privately owned market rate units, but with rents that are still affordable to households earning less than 60% of AMI. So this chart provides an overview of occupied rental units by affordability type. Overall, in the county, there are about 64,000 affordable units, including about 22,000 legally restricted units. And then within the study area, there are approximately 7,150 affordable units, and that's about 56% of rental occupied units. So compared to the county overall, the study area does have a higher proportion of affordable units in their rental supply. On the next slide, looking at the legally restricted inventory, this slide shows the spatial distribution of the roughly 22,000 units in the county. And we do see that the newer legally restricted projects built since 2010 have been primarily concentrated in downtown Tampa, East Tampa, and then the Brandon area. Looking at the study area, approximately 18% of the legally restricted units in the county are in the study area. And the study area has captured about 40% of the new units delivered in the last 10 years. So on the next slide, within the study area, we see that the legally restricted units are concentrated again in the downtown, as well as Tampa Heights and the Fowler and USF sub areas. Larger developments in the study area include Robles Park and the Oaks at Riverview, which are both the Tampa Housing Authority projects. Additionally, the Encore District accounts for about 75% of new construction legally restricted units and half of the total inventory in downtown. And much of the remaining inventory is older product that was built prior to 2010. Next slide, please, Steve. The expiration one prior. Great. So over 70% of the legally restricted units in the study area are at risk to expire in the next 20 years. Of particular note, all of the legally restricted units in the northern 3 sub areas are expected to lose restrictions in the next 20 years, and about half of the units in downtown and Tampa Heights are set to expire. While many mission-driven nonprofit owners may choose to extend the affordability period, the level of risk for these units with the expiration could pose long-term affordability in the study area if there are for-profit entities that flip at-risk units to market rate once these requirements expire. Now, shifting gears and looking at the NOAA supply, Overall, the study area contains about 2,300 NOAA units, and the presence of NOAA is extremely limited downtown, Tampa Heights, and then in Seminole Heights. And this is really where the market rate residential market is stronger. NOAA is more prevalent in weaker market rate residential markets, including the northern sub areas of North Florida, Nebraska, and Fowler, USF sub areas. On the next slide, the risk for NOAA displacement varies throughout the study area, and this is based on the presence of NOAA as well as the market rate residential market conditions. So we see that downtown and Tampa Heights have the lowest risk for NOAA displacement in the near term, and this is due to the very limited presence of NOAA, and the strong market conditions appear to have already priced out NOAA units, so there's really just not many there to displace. Given the low supply of NOAA and the stronger market conditions, the Seminole Heights sub-area will likely continue to feel the pressures of increasing rental rates, and this could lead to enhanced displacement in the future. And then the sub-areas that have a higher proportion of NOAA and very limited market rate investment occurring, such as those two northern sub-areas, we see those as having the lowest risk for displacement in the near term. So on the next slide, given the varying supply of both legally restricted and NOAA and the varying market conditions along the corridor, new construction and preservation will be needed, and those the needs for both of those vary throughout the study area. For example, in areas with higher risk for displacement, it could be more important to prioritize preservation strategies. You can go to the next slide, Steve. So given the varying supply, we are in the process of developing our affordable housing toolkit. On the next slide, we have identified various tools that we are considering as part of our best practice toolkit. We've organized these by 5 categories. So we have the housing programs, regulatory options, zoning options, funding mechanisms, and capacity building. On the next slide. As part of our toolkit, we are creating a dashboard that identifies the outcomes for affordable housing. So that is whether this tool could be used to support new construction or preservation. We're also identifying if this is a tool that is currently being used by the city or the county. And we're also thinking about the priority context or sub areas where this tool could be most applicable in the future. So this is our final slide, and as you can see, this is our preliminary organization of this toolkit. We are in the process of conducting additional interviews with public sector folks who are actively involved in using these tools to understand the effectiveness of current programs. We're trying to figure out if there are tools that are not being used that should be being used, and really just understanding the effectiveness and capacity to implement these tools in the various sub areas. While we are specifically looking at the applicability of these tools along the BRT corridor, we do hope that this toolkit can be useful for other folks in thinking about ways to support housing affordability in similar contexts. So I know this presentation has covered a lot of information in a short amount of time. Hopefully you all have a copy of the PowerPoint in the packet, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Madam Chairman.
Sure. One second. And thank you so much for that presentation. It was exactly what I wanted. Because I do believe there's a strong connection between transit and affordable housing, but more importantly, how do we put policy in place and make recommendations to the Board of County Commission on how to really foster the issues? And the toolkit was a good place to kind of frame that conversation as we move forward. Mayor Lott, you're recognized.
I just want to start off by saying that this has probably been one of the best reports I've seen in a long time. The data, the information, the toolkit, everything about it. I sure hope that this gets distributed to all the municipalities, because this is a fantastic, hats off to the team that put this together. This is an excellent report. So.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And with that, one of the reasons why I wanted to bring this, and we're also blessed with a new appointee who is our appointee from HART. HART recently had our representative resign for this position of the appointment. And Commissioner Myers was the alternate, according to HART's rules, they typically will make an appointment and then have an alternate position. With that, when Mr. Tyler Hudson resigned his appointment, the HART Board appointed Commissioner Myers as the appointee here. So we have another strong affordable housing advocate as well as transit advocate on the board. And I thought this is perfect timing for having you join us. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, that part of the reason why I've been following along this TOD study and recognize that much of the conversation is in line with what we've been wrestling with. Where do we help foster affordable housing? What kind of challenges do we need to address? How can we tie it to a family's budget, and which frequently is exacerbated by the need to have a vehicle, when that takes another $10,000 per vehicle out of a family's budget. And where is it best appropriate to focus our energies on creating not only the regulatory required affordable housing, as well as support naturally occurring affordable housing. That also became an issue when we started seeing, and part of the reason why we talked about about my office and the board approved the Tenant Bill of Rights, is to make sure that landlords and tenants had a clear understanding of what the rules are and how to best operate with them based on source of income, which is part of the reason why we brought that forward in the unincorporated Hillsborough County. And we're still working with the cities and municipalities on making sure there's an opportunity to have similar or same set of rules and ordinances in place in those municipalities. But that being said, I thought it was also very important for us to understand how we prioritize the affordable housing efforts in Hillsborough County. What we've heard today is the preservation is important, that new construction is important. But what we've also heard is we've got a great deal of properties that are going to lose their protection for affordable housing coming down the pike, just in this primary area, not to mention what's happening in the county area, unincorporated county area. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone on the board was sensitive to my constant sense of urgency on those issues and appreciation of the HFA for the new deals that they are using in the tax credit programs that maintain their regulatory protections. Their LARPs don't expire, if I'm not mistaken. And so I just want to thank the team for helping us understand what tools we could use here at the Affordable Housing Advisory Board when we are working with our elected leaders and as well as our developers that are looking for opportunity to develop to assist us in the mission associated with that, as well as those contractors that we work with on preserving housing in our area that could, in fact, sustain our naturally occurring rental properties for people that want to live here. Are there other questions? I'm not seeing hands raised, so I'm not for those that are online. Are there any questions online?
Madam Chair, the study area, what's the time frame on this study?
Actually, I'm going to let the team actually answer that question. It's been going on. It's a HART-funded study. I think we're about midway. She said we were in level 2, but I'm not sure what the actual timeline is. Could someone answer that question?
Sure, I can answer that. So the time frame for the study was approximately 18 months. We should finish up with the study actually this fall. So it was originally scheduled to be completed in September, but then with the pandemic, we pushed back a little bit. Our schedule fell back a little bit. So I would say early this fall. I would say October, November this fall.
Excellent. Thank you, Ms. Mccleary. I appreciate that. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. Are there other questions? Okay, I saw Connie Burton, you have your hand raised, and then I'll call on you, Meredith.
Yes, I want to really appreciate this and take it with like great care. And although, the study and, I appreciate, that piece of work, something well beyond my scope. But just in my, observation, I could just see how rapid things are in even with having this information, how will it then be respected by developers, various governmental, entities? Because, as I always advocate what I see in East Tampa, people are being pushed out rapidly every day, and there hasn't been a real desire from, within the city to afford people that is living below a certain income level to remain in our community. It is happening in East Tampa. Houses are going well up to $400,000. And now the bulk of those people are then ending up somewhere in the county. They're ending up somewhere, but it's not within inside of, neighborhoods that was once affordable. So, thank you for the study, and hopefully it just don't become a document.
Oh, thank you very much for that comment. It's certainly not going to become just a document on the shelf, that's for sure. But that's part of the reason why I wanted to bring it to the board. Even though they're not finished with their work, it is because of our urgency in addressing housing and what's happening in the market right now as far as real estate is concerned. I thought it would be wise for us to at least see this element, which they have for the most part completed. So thank you very much for your comments, Mayor Burton. I truly agree and understand. And that's another reason why preservation of our existing housing stock and being able to maintain those households so they're not displaced as the market heats up or has continued to heat up, I think is a critical part of our mission here. Meredith Abel?
I have a comment, and I also have a question. I have a friend who used to live just outside of Temple Terrace, who literally lived in what we might call a shack. And he was a disabled senior, visually impaired, and he was just relocated to a new affordable home along the corridor. And I picked his brain a little bit when I visited his new place that he's so proud of. And I wanted to know a little bit about the process, about how he got there. And I just wanted everyone to know that this hard work is paying off. I think it's going to prolong his life. He seems happy and he seems healthy, and he can access transit and use what limited vision he has left to adjust to his new home. And I'm really happy to see the efforts that are made there and the continued efforts to protect that. But my question is, on the study goals, it says ensure context-sensitive buildings and public spaces. And I was just wondering if you could go into a little bit more detail about that and explain how that's being accomplished.
Oh, who wants to
Sure.
answer that question from the team?
Yeah, so I was on mute. I'm sorry, I can tackle that one. Part of the study, the set of recommendations that we'll make in the study have to do with how new development fits within the neighborhoods along the corridor. So we do have a concern about the scale of projects, the transitions between new development on the corridor and the neighborhoods that are adjacent to the corridor, as well as the infill in the neighborhood. So in some cases, we're making recommendations for the introduction of what we call missing middle housing types, which are the in between a single family and an apartment building. There's a lot of types that aren't well represented in the market that provide additional diversity of kinds of housing, but we want to make sure that that housing fits the neighborhood. So we're really thinking about the scale, the form of those buildings, how they relate to the neighbors. So that's what we mean when we talk about context-sensitive buildings. It's really the relationship between the new development and the existing neighborhoods.
Thank you for that.
Steve, I want to make sure we're real clear with the language here. Because new development sounds, if we're not single family, we're going to be looking at other types of housing types, correct? And so I think it's important for the communities to recognize those housing types frequently do exist, but they're not as prevalent. So when we're talking about other housing types, Steve, in your mindset, are you speaking of duplexes, townhomes, quads, multifamily, and then how do we help neighborhoods not push back against anything other than single-family homes?
That's one of the questions. We have had a little bit bit, not a lot, but a little bit of pushback about the idea of new duplexes, triplexes, attached housing types introduced next to the neighborhood or between the corridor and the single-family neighborhood. What we need to focus on is the scale of those projects to help people understand that these are not larger scale apartments that are getting stuck between the houses, that they can be developed in a way that are compatible. And there's a lot of that in historic neighborhoods now. So in Tampa's historic neighborhoods before single family zoning was in place, you would see naturally a mix of single families, attached housing, very small scale townhouse projects and small apartment projects. And that provided for the needs of a whole range of kinds of people and types of households in those neighborhoods. So we're trying to reintroduce really an old idea about mixed housing in existing neighborhoods.
Excellent, thank you very much. Yeah, I've noticed driving around in the Heights area, there are several like apartment buildings that were built in the 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I'm like, well, they were built then, they can be built again and still assimilate into the community without causing a great deal of angst. But along the corridors too, having, larger buildings to protect the single-family houses from a major artery such as Florida or Nebraska, that's within our code now, is having more density up close and then gradually moving towards less dense or towards a single-family home is within the City of Tampa's code. So where we can actually work within those rules or within those land codes, but also in the county, when we're looking at where affordable housing is being built on our major corridors that may not have been identified as a BRT, for example, or a bus rapid transit, or a transit-oriented emphasis area, whatever the wording that HART chooses to use. We need to look at where housing is being done in those areas to help facilitate the household budget that is looking for either naturally occurring affordable housing or regulatory required affordable housing. Are there other questions? Ms. Burton, you have a question,
Yes.
and then Commissioner Myers, I'll recognize you. I'm sorry, Cody.
Is there a reason that race was not included in, say, the makeup, included in the study? Everybody need a house, but there are factors that eliminate certain groups, and I want to know why race was not included in, say, some of the percentage of who is able within these income guidelines to, maintain housing in certain areas.
Good question.
We did, when we looked at the existing neighborhoods and we looked at the makeup of the folks that live there, we did look at race, as well as a number of other factors. We did look at race, we looked at income, access to a private automobile, reliance on transit, as factors to think about as we consider what our policies, what sort of neighborhoods and folks our policies would affect. So that was one of the factors. When we looked at affordability, we didn't specifically call out race to look at the affordability or the availability of housing available across the footprint of the project. That would be an extra level of detail that we could possibly get into, either probably through an additional study. But in general, we tried to understand the potential impacts of recommendations, but we didn't look specifically at affordability by race.
And the reason I want to raise that is that what we are seeing now in East Tampa is that when new builds are occurring, most people that are moving into East Tampa and can afford the $400,000 homes is non-African people. And so in that sense, the community feel a sense of gentrifying the neighborhood, because then developers are purchasing property, people are building, and those who have that type of income tend to be non-African people. And so, we are developing, you could say even it's affordable, but the lack of African people being able to remain in certain neighborhoods is a factor. It is happening.
Oh, I'm very aware of that, and that is a challenge. One of the things that I learned recently in another workshop was that frequently our mortgage underwriters, those that take the application for a mortgage, are not persons of color. And so in the work that we will be doing in Hillsborough County on the equity profile that is coming up soon for decision and moving forward, that issue is one of the items that I want to make sure we take a look at, just to address what can happen in displacement when communities do improve. But does that mean moving people that live there out? And it shouldn't necessarily be, what happens. With that, I'm going to call on Commissioner Myers and then Cody Powell and then Liz Strom. I see your hand raised too.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just
For
have-
one moment, I'm sorry. This is Jeff Dickinson. I just want to add one more thing to the question of race, if that's all right.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Thanks. I don't know the history of Tampa as well as I know the history of Chicago, but I very strongly agree with the questions and the comments. I know that the city and the county and the private sector did an awful lot of things for an awful long time to make life bad for black people in Chicago. And I don't know if that's true in Tampa, but I think around here, I think we're beginning to be better about feeling a special responsibility to try to do something to make life better for black people, basically. And so I don't know if that's the trend in Metro Tampa, but certainly redlining wasn't an accident. All those sorts of things weren't accidents. Those were conscious decisions by powerful people. And I hope that continues to be part of the conversation in Tampa to try to take some action to remedy some of the injustices, essentially, that are historically part of housing in this country.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate those comments. And we have that history too. So thank you very much. Commissioner Myers.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, we need, on that particular issue we just talking, we got to change the culture, the mindset. It is really important that we can no longer think that African American people need to be overlooked when we are trying to stay in our own homes and people come in, the developers, and want to move us out. I do agree many times that the underwriters are not people of color and they are not sensitive to make sure that we can qualify for a home. And so that's another reason we are pushed out too, because we met the same qualifications as others, and yet the opportunities for African Americans still do not exist today. So once we work with everyone to begin to change the culture and the mindset, we will begin to see great opportunities to happen for the black and brown community. But I raised my hand to address the question of when one of the gentlemen said we were having pushback. It is important that we have community engagement. As you continue to work on the study, you also need to consider being out in the community and meeting with the community to share the different affordable housing tools that we're talking about this morning, so that the community can be acceptable and help us in a new trend with affordable housing. So I just wanted to share that with us.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. They've had several outreach meetings, but I think a majority of them have been online so far. And there are several more outreach workshops coming as they work through their project. But I do believe that it would be wise for us to potentially host a few outreach programming to talk about not only affordable housing, but also to increase the dialogue with the development community to help them understand why there's a great reason to go through the effort of understanding how to develop affordable housing in Hillsborough County, because we definitely have the need, we definitely have the demand. Now we just have to figure out how to create the supply, and that's what we heard earlier. It is a supply issue, and we have to address it if we're going to not continue to displace people with higher rents and higher home prices that exceed the maximum allowed for the first-time homebuyer program. Because in some areas of this map that we just looked at, the housing prices are getting to a place where they exceed the eligibility criteria for first-time home buyers. So I think that's something we have to also be very sensitive to. Mr. Powell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, really great presentation. I like the data that's in here is just fantastic, so I want to applaud you all for that. Sort of to my question is kind of to echo what Burton brought up earlier and what you just brought up, Commissioner. how do we make things more affordable? And when I look at, the corridor where, for the transit-oriented development, the dirt alone is going to be very expensive because those are really going to be along, like, commercial areas. So, and you brought up about how the housing in, East Tampa, Ms. Burton, is, approaching, $400,000, and it's just making it unaffordable for people, and for her first-time home buyer programs, as well for those. So are we looking at a part of this study, and I brought this question up in our workshop that we had for the Planning Commission on the density bonus, and I don't know if it will get anywhere, but I'll continue to ask it until it finally does. But do we have, or are we looking at, do we have any regulations in the county that are unnecessarily driving up, the cost of housing? What do we have in place, that might be, making it more expensive, to build a home that then prices out someone from being able to afford, X house? I can think of some things on my own, just from conversations that I've had with, builders on, there's certain architectural design regulations that just because of that one regulation, it drives up the cost, it adds $10,000 to $15,000. And I would imagine that if we, were to kind of go through some of those regulations and see what can be, curtailed a little bit in order for there to be, some cost savings, you might be able to, reduce that by $35,000, $50,000. Then, just makes it more, affordable. So has that been thought of, a part of this study?
Probably not part of this study, but I'll let her answer.
Commissioner, this is Ms. Howell, and I apologize I'm not able to come on video. Ms. Powell, thank you so much for your comments, and I responded those. So we look at a number of different things. I work with the Development Services Department very, very closely. And so as we provide for municipal services, I want to say that the cost of everything is increasing, but the amount of investment that's going into affordable housing has also increased dramatically and exponentially over the years. So some of the things that we are really begin to take a look at is, how displacement is affecting the people. How, even when publicly invested housing developments come up in a community, how that sometimes disbands the social support systems of many of the people that are currently living there, and how we can do a better job coalescing and coming together and developing practices. It's not just in policies, but it's in practices of how we can better serve the people that are in need. So one thing in particular that we have been looking at is just putting a focus on displacement, and ensuring that a certain percentage of the people from an area get a preference or a priority to those units. Because we know that if they have to move, that they lose total support system. They lose their babysitters. They lose their rides to work. They lose a tremendous amount of support in those areas. And so some of those we can put $1 to, but some of those we can't put a dollar amount to, but they certainly are invaluable in nature. And that's some of the things that we can do, or at least one of the tools that we can implement to ensure a certain percentage of the people living in an area have priority access to those units. And and that's with rental in the single family development area. I mean, there is just a host of things that we're able to do, including subsidy, but not just limited to subsidy.
You want to follow up on that?
Thank you, Ms. Howell. I appreciate that. I don't think that really answered my question, though, as it applied to, are we just considering, things, for county regulations, within within like land development code or building services is what I was speaking about. I definitely hear what you said, but I just think that like if my question that I asked, if it's not being done, that's fine. I just think that it's something that we should consider, and it's just an additional avenue towards making housing more affordable. If you can cut costs, a penny saved is a penny earned. At least that's what my dad told me. So, if we can figure out ways to, to make it more, the cost of it, then we're going to just have better opportunity for people to lower barrier of entry, is my point.
Right. So I think what I hear you asking is, what things do we have in place that help make it less expensive for developing affordable housing? And part of it is, well, time is money. So the expediting processing is one of those items. Two, there's a significant number of waivers available for impact fees and other fees for affordable housing development. So that helps keep the cost. All of those fees have gone up, but it does help in mitigating some of those increased costs that are for new development. And then three, I think to your point, are there housing types and design specs that could be standardized in order to improve not only the cost of the home, but also the affordability of the home? So for example, the projects that are being built that are down in South County that are single-family homes that have a very, very high level of insulation, for example, that actually, I think it's the technology of the building makes it where the electric bill is pretty much zip, or very close. That adds to the value of the home, but it also adds to the affordability of the home. And while it may cost more to do that, long-term, that home has become much more affordable because they're not paying a $300 a month electric bill, in the summer. So I think there's ways we can look at how we partner with our development services and our zoning and our land code. If in the area of generally recommend various different toolkits as they're doing here in housing types and incentives where affordable housing is being built, no matter where it's being built, whether it's in the cities or whether it's in the county, a set of tools, which we've looked at before, would be very, very helpful. And communicating that to the development community would also be probably very beneficial. And I have Liz Strom, then Kate Jackson-Sims, and then I'll come back to you, Ms. Commissioner Myers, if you have something else.
Thank you, Commissioner, and I also want to congratulate the authors of the study who did such an excellent job with it. I think the comment I have actually ties Mr. Powell's questions back to some of the earlier discussion of density. I feel like that some of the main ways that we make housing more affordable is being able to use land more efficiently and being able to eliminate some of the off-street parking requirements. And so this ties in nicely to the reason we're here studying this in the first place. The whole idea is that we have transit in these corridors, and so transit makes housing more affordable because families don't need that first or second car. But in order for transit to be viable, we need more density. And so I understand why we are concerned about selling higher density to people who are used to living in single family neighborhoods. But that is so essential. We cannot have all the things we want. If we want to have transit, we cannot have single family zoning in core neighborhoods. If we want to preserve the natural areas outside our core, we cannot have single family zoning in core neighborhoods. So there are many ways that we can use design and community engagement to make people feel comfortable with multifamily housing, but it is definitely essential. And also, if we have multifamily housing and good transit, we don't need to make developers build parking lots and garages, and that's going to cut down on the cost of housing also. So these things really all tie together. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your comments. Ms. Jackson-Sims, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to circle back to a couple of the comments that have been made. But first and foremost, I want to echo my congratulations to the team that worked on this. This is what my career has been spent in and my master's degree. So your report's an excellent report.
Let's circle back though to the point on what we're going to do with the report. We heard the young lady say that they should be completed sometime around October or November. So to ensure that we're just not having a report that does collect dust on a shelf, right now we should be looking at how we're preparing to implement this report. And I don't mean just with the county, I mean with the city, because a lion's share of this area is within the city's jurisdiction. And let's face it, we all know that sometimes it's a tough sell with the city. So we definitely need an interdepartmental and interjurisdictional committee to begin to come together to discuss some of the preliminary findings on this and to begin to do the assessments of the various departments. The comments on East Tampa, those are, we're going to need the city and the city's building department, the city's zoning regulations to be reviewed, because my experience has shown that there have been some zoning requirements within the city boundaries that make affordable housing more difficult to do in certain areas. So if we are going to be serious about it, we need to start the legwork now. But it cannot just be Hillsborough County. It's got to be the jurisdictions coming to the table as well. And I would suggest that we strongly push for Ms. Howe's department to take the lead. Because if we're serious about housing, we can't let another department lead this task. It has to be the department that has the understanding. So now's the time for us to get to work.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson Sims. I appreciate those comments. And yes, I've been trying to tear down silos since I got here, so I'm on board. Well, thank you very, very much. And thank you to this team. You guys have done a marvelous job of actually shining a light on how the connection between transit and affordable housing is critical, but more importantly, how we as an Affordable Housing Advisory Board can identify opportunities for helping the process of developing affordable housing, and how critical it is that we cross those lines when it comes to land development, transit, as well as even home design. So that was an excellent question. I appreciate everyone's feedback. Yeah, I'm not seeing any other hands raised. Ms. Sims, your hand's up again. So, are you?
No, ma'am, I just didn't take it down.
Okay, great. All right, excellent. I'm not seeing any other hands raised or any other comments. We're going to move on.
I want to mention that you mentioned.
Mr. Essawanso, you're recognized.
Thank
just
you.
In case no one hears it.
The insulation that you mentioned before, and tying down roofs, and all of these things that make homes safer and reduce the cost of electricity and reduce the cost of insurance, increase the cost of the house and have significant impact on the affordability of that house or apartment or duplex or whatever it is. So it's a balancing act between both, and that's what this committee is all about, is balancing affordability with, to some extent, greed of apartment owners, of people who are buying homes in areas and they're going through the gentrification process. I mean, I had breakfast this weekend in a small little place on Florida that years ago was a very affordable area, and now you park on the side street and you can see that it's no longer affordable. And so I share Ms. Burton's significant concern about, as I've said a number of times during my term on this board, is that you can only squeeze so far, and this has got to be a combination of a combined effort of government, of business of everybody involved in the housing industry to make sure that there is enough affordable housing. The work that this committee did, this report shows, is that the availability at the lower income levels is getting worse and worse and worse, and quite frankly, that strata, that group needs it the most, and those are the people that are just getting more and more stressed and financially stressed and personally stressed, I would assume, and so we've got to work on that balancing act that makes that it's okay for something to be not as, I don't want to say not as safe, but slightly less safe to reduce the cost.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Understood. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And yes, we are running, we're running with scissors right now. Right. We've got a potential eviction crisis about to happen. We've got people still unable to go get fully employed to make enough to be able to actually cover the cost of daycare as they go back to work if they don't have assistance like access to transit where it's less costly to move around, and rents increasing at a rate that is frightening, honestly. So we have our work cut out for us, and that's why I say a sense of urgency in moving forward on possibly looking at fall outreach to work not only with landlords but also with developers for helping them be part of our supply issue, but also in working with our land use and development services partners, whether it be at the county or the cities, to find ways that we can facilitate making it easier for that development. Now, affordable housing development always takes longer than we want it to, but we have to start somewhere. And that was part of the reason why I wanted to have this conversation, because it gives us some really good guidelines on how we get started. So thank you very, very much for it. I don't currently have a legislative update. However, do we have anyone on the call that would be interested in bringing up what's happening? I know they're out of session right now. We pretty much got our our information regarding the Sadowski Trust at the last meeting. While it's frustrating, we're getting about what we had been getting with the sweeps. But I do want to continue to work with our state delegates and our local representatives at the state and the House and the Senate in order to address issues where affordable housing is in crisis. And one of them is something that I'm exploring at the moment when it comes to our corporate leases. We have the ability in Florida for a real estate investment trust or an investor to come in and literally put money down on the property and then have, by contract in their lease, just about 100% of the cost of maintaining that property on the renter. It's literally not, I can't even imagine why that's allowed, but it's there, and I'm doing a little bit of research on how we level that playing field a little bit, but there currently doesn't appear to be anything in the Florida law that prohibits that. And so I will be working with our legislators and our legal teams to kind of take a look at that and see if there's opportunities to suggest to our legislators to level that playing field a little bit. So that, other than that, I really didn't have anything else. Does anyone else have anything they want to add? Mark?
Commissioner?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, this is Cheryl Halligan, Director of Affordable Housing. I just want to say that we did get our allocation estimate sent to us last Thursday. So we're looking at $7.1 million allocation for this year for Hillsborough County. I don't want to say the city of Tampa would get approximately $2 million. So the region itself will get about a little over $9 million from SHIP funding. This year's a little bit different though. Well, it's a lot different because they swept the funds. And so typically we get access to all of the SHIP funding at the beginning of the year, which would be July 1st. But because they swept the SHIP funding, now we're only going to get the funding incrementally. And so, yes, they anticipate us receiving all of the funding, but we'll probably only get our first disbursement in October. So we're going to get the funding as the state receives the funding, which is a lot different than the way that it had been. And so it means it's harder to plan out larger projects as well. So I did want to share that information with you, and I'll keep you up to speed.
Excellent, thank you. I hate to say it, but I keep getting worse news. But I also want to say thank you, Hillsborough County, for making the $10 million annual contribution. At least this local leadership here recognizes the value of investing in affordable housing and giving the resources available to especially our very low income population where the need is the greatest. Mr. Wassenwerker, you recognize? Rosenwasser.
That's
Why did I
okay.
say that? I'm sorry. I say it backwards.
A lot of syllables there. You know, we keep hearing on the news that even internationally, the G7 is looking at corporate taxes. We also keep hearing about people from up north moving down here to take advantage of our no state income tax, to take advantage of the fact that businesses can do a lot of business in our state without paying corporate income taxes. What are you hearing as far as the possibility of taking advantage of those who want to take advantage of our state, of our region, and having them pay their fair share, a lot of which could go to affordable housing, a lot of which could go to mass transit, a lot of which could go to infrastructure. These are all the things that are desperately needed in the area, and as our population and our corporate population grows, the need becomes even greater.
It's a good question. I think it's one we need to answer. I'm not sure we have an answer to that question, but I do like it posed. So I do think it's something we all need to really kind of germinate on and then work with our state legislators to see if there's an opportunity to address that issue. Some of that is addressed through our sales tax and how we actually generate revenue for various different efforts. And in this case, you know, we have the CIT tax, and we have the communications tax, we have the gas tax. We also, hopefully, will have another surtax for transit coming next year back to the voters. But to answer your question about the corporate tax, I don't know the answer to that question, but I think it's worth ruminating on.
Yeah, particularly with the amount of business that is done. I'll just call it out, the Amazon type business where they're I see those trucks up and down the streets 4, 5, 6 times a day. They're renting enterprise vans at this point because they don't have enough trucks, and those sales are tax free if they come.
Not anymore. I think we just passed the legislation to
Did we?
add sales
Okay.
tax to online transit.
Okay, good.
So I believe that is one of the new taxes in Florida that
Forgotten about that.
will generate a significant portion of revenue to the state.
Good. Now I'll feel a little bit better seeing those trucks.
Whether or not we're going to see it stay in our
All those
local
trucks.
area is the question. So I think, to your point, yes, there are things that we have that it will help generate more revenue for things. We just have to continue to advocate for our share for affordable housing, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
I want to add to that in terms of affordable housing. So as it relates to affordable housing tax credits. So then it creates an opportunity for corporations to come in when they syndicate those tax credits, and then they're able to utilize that. So there may be an opportunity in this whole deal to actually get a higher value for the tax credits, because as you know, they'll fluctuate. In a really good market, you may get $1.10, $1.15 for your tax credit. In a really sluggish market, you might get 75 or 80 cents for your tax credit. So I think there's some opportunity there for the corporations when they come in and they get those tax credits syndicated. And so we'll see. So there's no ink written out here yet, and so we're kind of waiting for a lot of the pieces to still fall. So thank you so much.
Excellent, thank you. With that, seeing no other questions, I'm going to move to the next item on the agenda, the director's report.
Okay, thank you so much, Commissioner Cheryl Howell, Affordable Housing. We got a number of wonderful things that's happening. One of the things that's not on my report, but I do want to bring up is an agreement that we have with UACDC and Blue Sky and our very own Sarah Combs. They're going to be breaking ground pretty soon on a development. I want to say it's a 62 unit or 64 unit development in the university area. This was part of an RFP that happened last year. It's a 4% deal. I'm extremely excited about these new units being brought in this area in particular. It's been a while since we've seen, brand new units down in the university area, and rental units anyway. So I'm really excited about that. Sarah, do you have any comments for us?
Yes, we are just thrilled about it. It will be 61 units, and it's on 12th and Fletcher. And, this opportunity for residents in the university area has been a long time coming, as Cheryl said. I mean, we've waited decades to see development of this scale. And, most importantly, what I'm most proud about, Uptown Sky is the quality of this housing product. It looks like a market rate apartment. And, that is really the standard that we're trying to set here in the university area community. It's about quality and the residents that deserve that. And being able to accomplish that, I feel like will set the standard for what we're trying to do in the community. And just want to thank this board and also, everyone that has played a part in it. Blue Sky Communities has been wonderful to work with. And again, just really appreciate the opportunity to build this for our community. Again, 61 families will be able to call this place home. And we hope there'll be more and more in the future for UACDC.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sarah. We have a number of recently approved BOCC agenda items. We included those items in your packet. We have been very, very busy. There are a lot of changes that are going on up in DC. As you know, we have a new HUD secretary. We have a new regional interim person that's been put in place. And as of last Friday, we have a new assistant HUD secretary as well. And so if you've been around long enough, you know that a lot of emphasis comes out of a new administration. They're not necessarily new rules. Sometimes they're rolling back rules. Sometimes they change our rules a little bit. And so we're going to see what this particular administration has for us. There's going to be a tremendous amount of effort on home ownership opportunities, on prevention of homelessness, and access to housing for very low income families. We're already seeing that in the structure of the funding that's coming forward. Also in the Affordable Housing Services report, I want to bring to your attention that we had a celebration with Blue Sky and Men on a 104, I want to say it was the 144 unit or the 112 unit project out in the Sable Place. And so for those of you who were able to join the event, it was a wonderful, wonderful event. And so 70% of those families that'll be placed in that apartment complex are emerging out of homelessness. I mean, what a huge win for our community. I certainly appreciate everything that Men and, I'm sorry, all my phones are going off. Men and Blue Sky was able to bring to that deal. We currently don't have any other specific reports from Affordable Housing Services. We are waiting for some additional guidelines for our federal dollars and any additional set-asides or emphasis from our state dollars as well. We are looking forward to bringing you a wonderful, wonderful project that we'll be breaking ground on, and so that'll be next month's news. So, thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank you very much, Ms. Howe. I appreciate the updates. There is also, we are at future business issues or items. Are there any recommendations for future items?
Well, look, Commissioner, can I go back for just a second? We do have one issue that's unresolved, and I didn't know if it fell under the director's report or the chair's report. We need to bring some resolution to alternate board members and their ability to vote in the absence of the appointed board member.
Right. Actually, I was going to bring that up under new business, but we can talk about it now since we're at new business. We have several positions on the Affordable Housing Advisory Board. They're appointed by other boards, such as Commissioner Myers. She was actually alternate for Mr. Hudson, but then now she's the primary, and HART has established an alternate. But our bylaws currently don't address that particular circumstance. So if we have, for example, the city of Tampa has a position. We have a variety of different positions. Mayor Lott, you have your county, your vice mayor, right? That as you are the elected that's appointed from Plant City, you may want to opt for having that vice mayor act and vote in your place. Our current bylaws do not actually address that. And I know Ms. Takamori has actually been thinking about this because it came up when we were discussing the prior appointed member actually needing to resign. So can you give us an update on where or what your recommendations would be for the board to consider as we ask the BOCC to approve any bylaws changes that we recommend?
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, my recommendation would be that this board consider approving a motion to request the Board of County Commissioners to adopt a resolution allowing agencies that select members for AHAB to appoint alternates with voting rights in absence of the primary member. And were this board to pass that motion, staff could prepare a resolution, bring it to the Board of County Commissioners for their consideration.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So would the process be that you provide us with a sample document to put something like that in place, or do we just move that you bring the document back to us, or can I entertain a motion to have you bring the document back for consideration by the board to present to the BOCC, or how would you recommend we do that?
I can certainly prepare the resolution and bring it back to you at your next AHAB meeting. I think it's fairly straightforward if you do make the motion that the Board of County Commissioners, that you recommend the Board of County Commissioners adopt a resolution that allows the agencies to appoint alternates and that they have voting rights. It would say something substantially like that. So if you want to consider it, absolutely ask me to bring it back at the next AHAB meeting. Alternatively, your motion could simply be that staff prepare it and bring it right to the Board of County Commissioners.
Do I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I would like to make a recommendation for staff to prepare it and take it straight to the county commission, okay? Because I think this is something that is pretty standard with most of the boards we have, and it sure would keep consistency of the level of participation when we have each one of us be able to have an alternate that'd be able to take our place when we can't be there. So I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
A second by Commissioner Myers and Director Powell. Could you take a roll call vote unless there's other discussion? Okay. Roll call, please.
Overman,
Yes.
Myers,
Yes.
Rosenwasser,
Yes.
Burton, Lott,
Yes.
Abel,
Yes.
Powell,
Yes.
Jackson Sims,
Yes.
Combs, Sarah Combs.
Yes.
Okay. David Hollis, Mr. Hollis, okay, motion carried 9-0.
Excellent. Thank you very much, and I appreciate it, everyone, because I know this is an important part of our participation. I also want to say thank you for having an in-person quorum today, and we're getting closer. We're getting closer, and I appreciate those that follow the process and protocols for keeping our community safe. Are there any other new business items that we'd like to address? Mr. Powell, you're recognized.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to see if maybe for next month's meeting, if we could possibly have the folks from Tyndall Oliver come and give us the same presentation that they did for the Planning Commission on the Affordable Housing Density Bonus study that they're doing. I thought that it was one of the most comprehensive presentations, similar to what we had, today, and was really short and concise. And I think it would be really a big benefit, to everyone on the board, just to hear their thoughts and see some of their recommendations. So just like
Excellent.
to throw it out there.
Excellent. I like that recommendation. We'll reach out to them and see if they're available for the next meeting and add it to the agenda.
We're coordinating that. We're coordinating that right now, Commissioner,
Excellent.
with the MPO.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other new business items? Again, thank you. Everybody have a wonderful 4th of July. I guess we're heading,
Commissioner,
and a safe one.
Commissioner, I just wanted to add to the record that we did have Chrissy Nieves join the meeting, so I just wanted that to be added to the record. And Councilman Goose has an excused absence. He had a council meeting this morning.
Excellent. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Any other
Sarah
comments?
Combs is raising her hand.
Ms. Combs, you're recognized.
Yeah, I was just, can we get a quick update on where we are with the land trust, and then also the land RFP that is set to hopefully go out soon?
Ms. Howell?
Absolutely. So on the land trust, we're currently, I want to say we've had 3 meetings with FHC on the land trust so far, and we are putting together the structure for it. They are set or scheduled to come back to the AHAB board in August.
Okay.
With that plan, so it's moving pretty quickly. On the land RFP, we wanted to get a property rezoned before we move forward, and so we're in that process as well. Well, we got a couple of properties actually we want to get rezoned before we move forward. We find that it may be a lot easier after speaking with development services to do that before we release those properties.
Great. And Cheryl, will the land trust committee be reconvened after August when we get that report?
Well, I'm not sure about the process of the land trust committee being convened again, and so I think that'll be up for discussion for the board. I think that really we just gotta look at what they bring back to us in terms of the structure, and we can make a recommendation to be able to bring it to the Board of County Commissioners for approval. So.
Okay, thank you so much.
So we can make changes and modifications during that time. So it's a very fluid process is what I want to say to you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Burton, you're recognized.
I just want to say that, as a person that has experienced homelessness in and out of my life, and now I am witnessing, things that we're discussing about,
We're not able to hear you, Ms. Burton.
Can you help her? Please.
I'm sorry. So what I was saying is that, you know, as a person that have, you know, lived in, whether it was subsidized housing, experiencing homelessness myself, I could just only reiterate that the pressure is really on. The pressure is on for, you know, you wonderful people who are, you know, policymakers, you know, board of directors, commissioners, to just dig in. That people ain't looking for no Corral marble. We don't need 3,500 square foot. We don't need that. We just need leadership to move us in a direction so we can have dignity in living. That's all we want. And for people to kind of like, this document is beautiful, but I just witnessed it in so many different levels where people say, well, the market is dictating such a high rate in these costs. I believe we are working with a group of people that is dedicated to the cause. And so when I sit here, I ain't sitting here because I own anything. I don't own nothing. But I'm here to advocate constantly that our community is so dependent upon you all to move forward with, you know, rapid speed, so we can just restore a good standard and stabilize our communities in ways in which we can feel the full effects from adults all the way to the children. Because we just got so much of chaos going on right now in certain communities. And it's the belief that if we could stabilize our families, if we could stabilize our housing, we could solve a whole bunch of stuff. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments, and it reminds us why we're all here. And you can keep reminding us, Ms. Burton, every day. I'm perfectly happy with hearing that reminder, because that is exactly why we're here. With that, I don't see any other hands raised, and I will, like I said, wish you a safe and happy 4th of July, and we will see you next month. Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned.
John Dix?
Yes.